When a man is convinced that she's never coming back, the first instinct is usually panic, confusion, and desperation. But the truth is, nothing begins to heal until you take that first and most difficult step: acceptance. Acceptance is not defeat. It is not giving up on yourself or letting go of your worth. Acceptance is the quiet understanding that you cannot control another person's choices, emotions, or direction. It is the realization that clinging to what is slipping away only hurts you further. When she walks away, when the silence becomes louder than the relationship ever was, acceptance becomes the bridge between the pain you feel and the strength you're about to develop. In Stoic philosophy, acceptance is the gateway to inner peace because it redirects your focus from what you cannot influence to what you absolutely can: your own thoughts, your own actions, and your own path forward. When you accept that she made her choice, you stop fighting the storm and start learning how to stand in it. You begin to separate your identity from the loss. You stop asking, why did she leave? And instead start asking, what can I build from here? This shift transforms the entire weight of the situation. Instead of feeling powerless, you start reclaiming control piece by piece, moment by moment. Acceptance also removes the illusions you build around her. Sometimes the pain isn't from losing her, it's from losing the idea of her that you were holding on to. When you accept what actually happened instead of what you wished had happened, you release yourself from emotional fiction. That's when clarity begins. That's when your heart and your mind start working together again, not against each other. Through acceptance, you begin to see that losing someone doesn't mean losing yourself. You don't disappear just because she walked away. Your value doesn't shrink. Your future doesn't dim. You simply enter a new chapter, one you were always capable of facing, even if it didn't feel like it at first. And acceptance creates emotional space inside you, space for peace, for growth, for rebuilding. Without acceptance, every step forward feels heavy because you're dragging the past with you. With acceptance, you begin to put the past down, not because it didn't matter, but because you finally understand that carrying it any longer won't change anything. Instead of replaying memories, you begin to create new ones. Instead of holding on to hope in the wrong places, you begin to redirect that hope into yourself. That's when you start to rise. And the powerful thing is, this acceptance doesn't stop her from coming back. It simply stops her absence from controlling your life. When you accept what happened, you stop chasing, you stop pleading, and you stop waiting. You begin focusing on your own healing, your own goals, and your own strength. And there is nothing more magnetic, nothing more transformative than a man who has accepted reality and used it to build himself into someone stronger than before. Acceptance doesn't end your story. It begins a chapter that finally belongs entirely to you. Silence is often misunderstood. People think silence means weakness, avoidance, or indifference, but in reality, silence can be the most powerful form of communication you have. When she walks away, when the messages stop, when the calls fade, silence becomes your shield. It protects you from reacting emotionally, from acting out of fear, and from begging for closure that will never bring real peace. Silence gives you the space to think, to breathe, and to rebuild the parts of yourself that heartbreak often shatters. When you choose silence, not out of spite, but out of strength, you take back the power you once gave away. You stop feeding the emotional chaos that comes after someone leaves your life. You stop explaining yourself to someone who's already made a decision. You stop trying to convince someone to stay when their heart has already moved in another direction. Silence is a declaration that you will not break yourself trying to hold on to someone who let go. It is choosing dignity over desperation, self-respect over self-sacrifice, and the truth is, silence speaks louder than any paragraph you could text, because while words can be ignored, blocked, or dismissed, silence has a way of echoing in the places where your presence once mattered. It forces her to confront the reality that you're not waiting by the phone anymore, you're not orbiting around her, you're not available at her convenience. Silence disrupts the pattern she became used to. Your attention, your reassurance, your emotional availability. When those disappear, she begins to feel the void. Silence makes her ask questions she wasn't expecting to ask. Why isn't he reaching out? Did he move on? Was he stronger than I thought? Does he not care anymore? That uncertainty is powerful, but it's not the goal. It's simply the natural outcome of choosing yourself. On a deeper level, silence gives you the mental clarity to understand what truly happened. Heartbreak is loud, thoughts race, emotions clash, you start doubting your worth. But silence slows everything down. It allows you to detach from what hurt you and reconnect with what strengthens you. You begin to see the situation without emotional fog. You realize that chasing someone who left never brings peace. It only brings exhaustion. Silence helps you heal without interruption, without emotional noise, without reopening wounds that are trying to close. Silence is also a test, not of her, but of you. It shows whether you can stand firm in your self-worth, Whether you can resist the urge to beg for reassurance, whether you can sit with your discomfort long enough to grow beyond it. And when you maintain this silence, you begin to notice something powerful happening inside you. You become emotionally independent. You stop relying on someone else's validation to feel whole. You start building a life where your peace isn't dependent on other person's presence. In the end, silence isn't about punishing her. It's about freeing yourself. It's about choosing growth over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self respect over impulse. It's a quiet reminder that you deserve a life where your worth is not questioned. And that realization is the first step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. Sometimes the most surprising shift happens not in the moment she leaves, but in the silence that follows. When you stop reaching out, stop asking questions, stop trying to hold on to something that slipped through your fingers, a very different kind of energy begins to form. It's the energy of separation, distance, and emotional contrast. And that contrast is exactly what makes her begin to see you in a new light, often one she never expected. Because when a man becomes quiet, when he pulls his attention back, when he stops giving the emotional comfort she once took for granted, she begins to feel something she didn't feel before, the weight of losing access to you. You see, as long as you're available, responsive, and emotionally invested, she doesn't feel the full impact of walking away. She may think you'll always be there as a backup, as an emotional safety net, as someone who won't move on no matter how long she stays distant. But when you stay silent longer than she anticipated, the dynamic flips. She no longer feels in control of the narrative. She no longer feels sure of your feelings. She no longer assumes you're waiting. That loss of certainty creates discomfort, not because she wants to come back, because the version of you in her mind begins to dissolve. Silence forces her to experience your absence, not just notice it. And that's a very different thing. Noticing is passive, feeling is emotional. When she truly feels your absence, she starts reflecting on the moments she overlooked, the kindness she dismissed, the effort she didn't appreciate. She may replay memories in her mind, but this time they hit differently because they're now tied to a man she no longer has access to. And the human mind always assigns more value to what has become scarce. Your presence was once abundant, your attention was readily available, but now silence makes them rare, and rarity creates value. Most men don't realize this. Your silence isn't just the absence of words, it's the presence of self respect. It signals to her silently but powerfully that you're not dependent on her approval to move forward, that you're capable of living without her validation, that you're willing to accept her decision without chasing clarity that she herself may not even have. And when she sees that strength, when she sees that you didn't fall apart, didn't cling, didn't crumble, it changes the way she perceives you. It raises your value in her eyes because emotional discipline is rare, and a man who practices it stands out. Silence also gives her space to confront her own emotions without your influence. When you were present, she could lean on your reassurance or your reaction to guide her. But now she must face the reality of what she feels, whether it's regret, confusion, curiosity, or a sense of loss. She must sit with the quiet moments where your name crosses her mind and there's no message from you to interrupt the thought. That's when uncertainty becomes reflection, and reflection often becomes realization. In the end, silence reshapes the story, not because it manipulates her, but because it reveals the truth of who you are without the noise of emotional pursuit. And that truth is often more powerful than anything you could have said. Sometimes the most revealing part of any connection isn't what someone says, it's what they do when the attention they relied on disappears. And this is where your emotional discipline becomes the quiet force that shifts the entire dynamic. When you remain steady, calm, and composed in the face of her distance, you show a level of strength that most people never reach. Emotional discipline is not about pretending you don't care. It's not about acting cold or shutting down your humanity. It's about controlling your reactions instead of being controlled by them. It's choosing dignity over desperation. And that choice speaks louder than any message you could send or any explanation you could try to give. When a woman pulls away, many men panic. They try to fix things immediately, hoping that more effort will solve the problem. But effort given at the wrong time communicates insecurity, not love. When you maintain your emotional center instead, when you don't over explain, don't beg, don't force clarity, you send a very different message. You communicate that you are grounded, stable, and capable of holding your own. She may have expected you to chase, expected you to fill the silence with apologies or questions, expected you to crumble, and when you don't, it disrupts the entire pattern she was prepared for. People often misunderstand emotional discipline as coldness, but in reality, it's a form of maturity. It means you understand that your worth does not depend on someone else's presence. It means you allow space instead of suffocating the situation. It means you trust yourself enough to let things unfold without trying to control them. This is the kind of strength that commands respect, not because you demand it, but because your behavior naturally earns it. A disciplined man doesn't react impulsively to mixed signals. He observes, he reflects, he responds only when it aligns with his principles. This is powerful because it shows that you're not emotionally fragile. You're not waiting for her approval to feel whole. And in a world where emotional chaos is common, your calmness becomes magnetic. She begins to realize that losing a man who can navigate emotional storms without falling apart is not something to take lightly. What she expected was a reaction. What she didn't expect was your stability. And that stability forces her to look at herself differently. Instead of focusing on what you're doing wrong, she starts seeing what she may have misjudged or undervalued. Instead of assuming she has control, she begins questioning why you aren't responding the way she anticipated. Emotional discipline creates a mirror, one that reflects her own actions back at her without a single word from you. And with enough time, that mirror becomes clarity. You are not a man who breaks simply because someone stepped away. You are a man who rises, who regains balance, and who chooses strength over chaos. That realization alone is often enough to shift the direction of everything that follows. Timing is an invisible power in human interactions, yet it's one of the most decisive factors in creating attraction and desire. When a woman senses that you are not constantly available, not always reacting instantly to her moods or messages, she begins to notice the space you hold. It is in this space, this deliberate pause, that desire can grow stronger than words ever could. Many men fail to understand that by rushing, by sending continuous texts, or by trying to fill silence, they dilute their own value. Timing, when managed wisely, turns absence into a magnet rather than a void to be feared. When you step back strategically, you allow emotions to settle, thoughts to mature, and curiosity to emerge. This is not about playing games. It's about recognizing the psychological rhythm that governs human behavior. People are wired to value what is not always at their fingertips. By not being instantly reachable, you create a subtle tension, a space where she begins to wonder about you, to imagine possibilities, and to realize that your presence is not guaranteed. That tension is what draws attention, keeps her intrigued, and eventually makes her reconsider her own feelings and actions. Timing gives her the opportunity to feel what she might have taken for granted. It's also about respecting your own pace. When you respond only when appropriate, when you engage with thought rather than reaction, you signal that your life operates on principles, not panic. This sense of self respect resonates deeply. Women often respond to the strength they sense in men, not the desperation they fear. By controlling the timing of your interactions, you communicate that you have a full, meaningful life independent of her approval or attention. This makes you compelling because it positions you as someone whose value is inherent and undeniable, not contingent on immediate validation. Timing intersects with patience. It requires resisting the urge to over communicate, to over justify, or to chase. It's about understanding that influence is not exerted through constant effort, but through strategic presence and well measured engagement. Each message, each interaction, each appearance must carry weight. The scarcity of your attention magnifies its impact. When you time your responses, you are not ignoring her. You are creating an environment where she has room to feel, reflect, and acknowledge your importance without coercion. The psychological effect is profound. When someone is used to constant attention and suddenly encounters measured, intentional absence, it challenges assumptions. She starts to realize that your presence is not something to take lightly, that your attention is earned, and that you are not easily replaceable. This can awaken emotions she may have suppressed, make her evaluate her own priorities, and ultimately compel her to take notice of your worth in a way that mere words or pleas could never achieve. In essence, timing is about creating significance without speaking it aloud. It's the silent rhythm that amplifies your value, draws her attention, and reshapes the dynamics between you. By mastering timing, you allow space for reflection, intrigue, and recognition to develop naturally. The right pause at the right moment can make her realize the weight of what she almost lost. Confidence is magnetic, and it's the final piece that ties together all the subtle strategies we've discussed. True confidence isn't loud or flashy, it's quiet, steady, and unwavering. It's about understanding your value without needing constant validation from others, especially from someone you desire. When a woman senses that a man is grounded, self assured, and unshaken by her moods or reactions, it triggers a profound psychological response. She recognizes that your worth isn't contingent on her attention, and that realization can ignite both curiosity and admiration. Confidence is the lens through which every action, every pause, and every interaction is amplified. Confidence allows you to navigate silence with ease. When you stay silent for days or resist the urge to chase, you are not being distant out of fear or manipulation. You are demonstrating composure and emotional stability. This steadiness communicates to her that your emotions are not dictated by her whims. A confident man's mind is occupied with meaningful pursuits, personal growth, and purpose. When a woman sees this, it stirs a subtle realization she is dealing with someone rare, someone whose presence is earned rather than taken for granted. The combination of independence and quiet assurance makes you compelling in ways that words alone never could. It's also about the energy you project in every interaction. Confidence is felt more than it is seen. It's the calm tone in your voice, the relaxed posture, the consistent decisions that show you are in control of your life. Women, consciously or subconsciously, pick up on these signals. When you respond thoughtfully rather than reactively, you position yourself as someone of substance, someone whose life is rich and fulfilling even in your absence. This naturally encourages her to reflect on what she has been missing, amplifying the impact of your presence when it finally reappears. Confidence creates boundaries without harshness. It allows you to decide when to engage, when to step back, and when to simply observe. These boundaries are essential because they prevent neediness, which is the opposite of attraction. A man who is confident does not chase approval, he holds space for mutual respect. By embodying this mindset, you shift the dynamic. Instead of her controlling the emotional narrative, you guide it with quiet authority. She begins to recognize the value in what she almost overlooked, not because you demanded attention, but because you carried yourself in a way that naturally commands it. Moreover, confidence breeds consistency. It is not about occasional displays of bravado or sporadic assertiveness. It is about a reliable, grounded sense of self that persists regardless of external circumstances. This consistency strengthens the effect of any strategic absence, measured interaction, or silent pause. When she sees that your confidence is unwavering, it reinforces the perception of your value, your rarity, and your emotional stability. Ultimately, confidence is the foundation upon which all attraction is built. It turns absence into intrigue, silence into reflection, and restraint into desire. When a man operates from a place of genuine self assuredness, he does not need to manipulate or plead. His presence alone communicates worth and significance. A confident man is unforgettable, and it is this quiet assurance that ensures she notices, respects, and ultimately recognizes what she stands to lose.